Welcome to the Let Your Heart with Hope podcast. I'm Erin, and I'm really thankful you're listening today because I want to share with you a message that God's been stirring in my heart after listening to Amy's story that I shared on Monday about being faithful in the fire. We all have a story of a season of walking through the flames of life, hoping and praying we make it out alive. As I reflected, I realized that during these seasons in my own life, more times than not, I felt like my faith had faltered. And eventually I wondered if I even had any faith left at all. Over the past few years, I've battled severe depression and anxiety, and there were times when I was sure the flames would consume me. I saw no way out. I thought God had left me there to die, alone, afraid, abandoned. I kept asking, God, where are you to rescue me? Why aren't you pulling me out of this pit of despair? Where are you? I don't have the faith to make it out of this fire. How am I supposed to be faithful in the fire if I feel completely faithless? But what if my faithfulness isn't dependent on me, on my ability to muster up the strength to stand, on my will to keep going? What if it's not my own faith that sustains me? What if my faithfulness is rooted in the faithful one, the one who remains faithful regardless of my circumstances, the one who will never leave me in the fire alone? Although it took a long time for me to realize, God reminded me that He has been there all along. He was in the flames with me. There was not a moment where He was not present, walking alongside me, sitting with me, holding me, carrying me through. God was faithful in my fire. I saw His faithfulness through my family. Moment by moment, they stood by me. They fervently prayed for me. They went to battle for me when I didn't have any fight left in me. They held me and carried me when I felt like I couldn't stand. They loved me unconditionally when I couldn't love myself. I saw His faithfulness in the community of people He surrounded me with, people who wouldn't give up on me even when I wanted to give up on myself. People who prayed for me when I couldn't utter another word. People who believed in my healing when I thought I wouldn't survive. I saw His faithfulness in providing counseling, doctors, medication, and so much more. I believe without a shadow of a doubt that God uses those things for our good. When I thought I was lacking, He was providing. I even saw His faithfulness when I ran from Him, when I doubted and questioned everything I knew about God. When I ran, He remained. I saw His faithfulness in the fact that I'm still here. By the grace of God, I'm alive to share my story. When I was faithless, He remained faithful. I think sometimes we look at the fires in life as God abandoning us or punishing us for something we've done. But what if it's not what we've done, but what God is doing in us? What if He's refining us? It makes me think of gold. It has to go through a process of trial by fire before it becomes the beautiful piece of gold that we see. It doesn't start out beautiful. It actually begins as an unrecognizable rock mixed in with a bunch of other metals. It's impure. And in order for it to be purified, it has to go through a process of refining, a process that can only take place in the fire. Proverbs 17:3 says, "In the same way that gold and silver are refined by fire, the Lord purifies your heart by the tests and trials of life." If you're in the fire, you are being refined, purified. And not only are you being refined and purified, but what if you're being set free? What if you're being set free from the other metals in your life that are making the gold in you unrecognizable? What if God is setting you free from the shame you carry, free from what you've done or what's been done to you, free from the sin that you're entangled in, free from the strongholds that have held you captive? What if the fire is setting you free? In the book of Daniel, we hear a story of a king who commanded that everyone must bow down and worship this image of gold that he created. And if not, they would be thrown into the blazing furnace. But there were three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who refused to worship anyone but God. Immediately, when the king heard that these three men were disobeying his orders, he confronted them in fury. Daniel 3:16-18 says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. The faith of these three men always blows me away. It's actually one of my favorite stories in the Bible. First, they said that their God is able, so they believed that God could save them. But then they continued and said, and he will deliver us. They had this unshakable confidence in the saving power of their God. But even if he does not, even if God didn't rescue them from the fire, they still would not worship anyone or anything else. They remained faithful. If you aren't familiar with the rest of the story, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were tied up and thrown into the blazing furnace. In fact, the king actually ordered that the furnace be turned up 7 times hotter, which wasn't the smartest idea considering that the flames were so hot that they killed the king's soldiers who bound them up and threw them in the fire. But then as the king watched, he noticed something very odd. Verse 25 says, Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods, unbound, unharmed. The king then told Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to come out of the furnace, and when they did, everyone witnessed that the fire had not harmed any part of them. Not only was their body not harmed, but their clothes didn't even smell like smoke. Immediately, the king praised God because he saw those faithful men being set free from the flames. And what the king didn't realize was that not only were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego set free, but he too was set free. He was now worshiping the one true God. How has God been faithful in the fires of your own life? How is he refining you? How is he purifying you? How is he setting you free? Maybe it's the fire that ends up fueling your faith. It's showing you that God will not abandon you there, but he will refine you, purify you, set you free. And ultimately, you can trust that even when you feel faithless, God will remain faithful in the fire because he is a faithful God.